and welcome to a special Creature Features presentation of the documentary Up Late with Bob Wilkins. I am your host, Vincent, and with me is my lovely housemate, Tangella. Of all the programs in the 1960s and 70s that carried the name Creature Features, many would say that the one out of San Francisco's television station KTVU was indeed the most unique. Its iconic host, Bob Wilkins, helmed the program for 7 years and became a staple of San Francisco Bay Area television. Tonight's presentation is his story. Created by the director of our show, Tom Wyrsch, you'll see many familiar faces throughout this short tour of horror host history. Indeed. And Tangella reminds me to include that there will be many never-before-seen interviews with some very famous people from the horror and sci-fi genres. So please enjoy our presentation, and Tangella and I will check in with you halfway through the program. See you soon.
Can you feature that awful creature? Can you feature that ugly creature? Creature features and feature features about creatures. Creature features. But the weirdest thing about this show is its host, Bob Wilkins, and he brings it to you. Creature features and more creatures.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Half an hour, the moon will rise, and I'll turn into a wolf.
You and 20 million other guys.
Hi there. My name's Bob Wilkins, and I'm the host of the late Saturday night horror film.
It's difficult to explain for someone from Des Moines what we do here every Saturday night. It's difficult to explain to someone who lives in Oakland or San Francisco who watches the show week in and week out. Let's get into tonight's movie, and remember, stick with it a little bit because Gary Kurtz made that movie a long time ago, and who knows, you might spot some talent in tonight's movie. Okay? And right after that, the Martian report. The Martian report. Don't miss it. A very unusual report from a Martian. And here we have William Shatner live. 45 cities. That's a lot of Holiday Inns. Right?
Is that an accident you should mention?
No. As I said, Leonard, this will play on Creature Features, and I know many of my Creature Feature fans will be happy to know that you were into Lon Chaney.
What have Creature Features got to do with me?
My mother watched horror, and she watched Dark Shadows every day. It was like a soap opera that came on ABC. And she probably didn't start watching Creature Features right in January of '71, but sometime in that year I got introduced to it by my parents.
The evil ghost in the bedroom, fighting to take possession of this...
I loved it for the movies. I didn't know what this thing was because I've never seen a horror-hosted show before. So at that time, I was like, hurry up and get to the movie kind of thing. I wasn't used to that at first. Obviously, my love for that would grow.
That one thing I have to kid the newspaper people again. Clark Kent now works for a television station. And I discovered this about a year ago. Remember George Redding that used to work for us here at TV2? One day I saw him right outside the station changing clothes, and he had a big red S on his T-shirt. In fact, that's why they let George go here, changing clothes out there in the phone booth, but that's another story. George can be seen on Channel 4 now. Okay, coming up we have Target Earth, science fiction film. I have a surprise for you. Something that you see in that film is going to be on our stage here before the show is over tonight. Then we'll be back with a classic, The Werewolf of London, and our special Star Trek guest during the intermission. Okay? Let's get the show on the road here.
I can't remember anything before Bob Wilkins. My dad, he was a huge fan of the show, and I was just a toddler in the early 1970s in Sacramento. He'd turn on those movies on Channel 40, and in the beginning, I was just confused, but as I got a little older, I was really scared of those movies. My reaction to those films was utter terror. I couldn't understand at first why someone would put such horrible images on the screen just to torment me. I remember just hiding under the coffee table in my Spider-Man pajamas with my hands covering my eyes. But then Bob would come out, and he was this calming presence. He'd come out and tell jokes, and Dad was asleep in the recliner, but Bob was talking to me.
I forgot to wish you folks a happy Valentine's Day at the top of the show, but there was so much happening. Ron Lewis, who is a production man on this show, his young son, he's only about 4 years old, 4 or 5, sent over a nice cupcake. In fact, they knocked out a very good 2-hour horror special that will be broadcast on Friday the 13th in March, next month, okay? And they really did a bang-up job on it. I'm just a very small part of it. But you'll see a lot of things that, an interview with Boris Karloff and Lugosi and all kind of coming attractions for horror films. 2-hour special in March, okay?
As a kid, I loved the sci-fi films and horror, well, mainly horror films, I think. You know, Frankenstein, all those great ones. My favorite horror film has got to be the original Bride of Frankenstein. I could not get that image out of my mind, and it kept me up night after night after night, but that's my favorite. I first found out about Bob Wilkins and Creature Features was when I moved to Sonoma County. And when I saw him the first time, I said, wait a minute, this is not right. This guy is wearing a suit. It just didn't fit, but he was so, I don't know, corny. It was great.
People write to me all the time, and they tell me they do things while this movie is on, and I can understand it. Not tonight's first film, but the second movie, you're going to be cleaning the bathrooms and doing a lot of stuff there at home. But this is incredible. I have to show you a picture. King Kong, of course, everybody's excited about that they're going to bring back King Kong. 2 movie companies are working on it right now. Judith Weston worked 4.5 months to knit a sweater for King Kong. She lives in Bolinas. Look at there. This is not a trick photo. There's Judith in the middle. There's the huge sweater. Even the hanger took about 3 cords of wood, they tell me. Incredible, and she's our Creature Feature Fan of the Month, Judith Weston from Bolinas, California. That's remarkable, and we're going to have her on the show to talk more about this unique sweater. It took her 4.5 months while she's watching this show. Okay, for our Creature Feature Fan of the Month, Judith, you will receive Creature Feature game. You will receive tickets to the Rocky Horror Show that's playing in San Francisco at the Montgomery Theater, and also an 8x10 autographed picture of Gladys Knight in the Pips. Okay? All that stuff, plus some other stuff. I'll clean my desk drawer out and I'll send it all to you. Okay, let's get back to the man with X-ray eyes.
I really remember the very early years of the Seven Arts Theater, I think it was called back then. And I mostly watched it, honestly, for the monster movies. And Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, The Amazing Colossal Man, that kind of thing.
I can't shoot a lady.
Give me the gun. Give me that gun.
Well, I remember he had quite a sense of humor, and he was very calming to watch. TV back then definitely had a slower pace, and they didn't shout at you and beat you over the head with everything. And so I just remember he was easy to watch and an interesting personality. But I'd have to say that I'd kind of compare it to Rocky and Bullwinkle in that as a kid I I enjoyed it on a certain level. And then when I go back and watch it as an adult, you get a whole new appreciation for truly how funny it is.
Thank you. This just in from our newsroom, Sports Bulletin. In an effort to save the Giants, you've been following the San Francisco Giants, of course. In an effort, a last-ditch effort to save the Giants, city officials here in San Francisco want to change the name of San Francisco to Toronto. That's just in. It sounds confusing, but they're pulling out all the stops to keep the team here. I'm sorry I can't be with you folks this evening. I'm on special assignment, and it's really rough to be away from the studio. But I'll be back next Saturday night, and I hope you enjoyed tonight's film. I know that I'm going to have a good time.
And the creature's gonna get you tonight. You better not turn out your bedroom lights.
This Saturday night on Creature Features, we'll have our big Christmas show. Big special, like we do every year. We'll have 2 wonderful movies for you, plus a lot of Christmas surprises. This Saturday night, we hope to bring a little joy to your world.
One of my first memories of watching Bob's show was when he showed Night of the Living Dead. I was probably 6 or 7 years old. It was probably a movie I shouldn't have been watching, but my parents let me. It was when I was living in Berkeley at a very young age, and I remember just being so terrified by the movie. I was hiding behind the couch at one point, kind of peeking over, watching the TV. As it turns out, Bob was the first to show Night of the Living Dead uncut on TV, and it was a very memorable episode of Creature Features.
Probably be a lot more of them as soon as they find out about us.
I loved it. I mean, you know, to my 8-year-old self, if a movie didn't have a monster in it, it wasn't a movie. And that pretty much hasn't changed. But I just loved the films that he showed, you know. I had never seen them before. They played on TV, you know, off and on, but this was your regular weekend appointment to watch these films. And I just fell in love with them, you know, right from the beginning. At the time, I just simply enjoyed the movies and the information you got, talking about the upcoming conventions and upcoming movies and books and things. But later on, looking at it, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it was really a kind of communal experience, because you would run into people, or, you know, either at school or other places, and you'd hear them talking about Creature Features, and you'd get into the conversation, and, yeah, I plan on going to that convention, or I really want to see that movie, or, yeah, that movie he showed last night was either it was great, or it was horrible, or whatever.
The mail that came in about last week's film, The Creeping Terror, I just read just some of it, from Tony Ravo, who's a well-known instructor. He's into films. He said The Creeping Terror was, without a doubt, the worst movie he's ever seen in his life. This guy has seen them all. He says he thought Monster from Milpitas was weak, but this took the cake. And he just can't understand why 2 would even bother picking that up. Famous people are writing in, too. John McFlanagan, well-known disc jockey, KFRC, said that they will hold a contest on Halloween night, KFRC, and the losers, or the winners, I can't remember, will appear on this show. That he feels so sorry for the things that we have to show here. Carter B. Smith, aging disc jockey over at KMBR, claims that he was forced at gunpoint to watch the movie last week, and he was praying for a power failure that never came off, and that's incredible. He also sent his picture along, and of course we'll donate this to the nearest haunted house, which in our case is, I believe, in Emeryville, or Eastmont Mall in Oakland has one too.
I was about 4, maybe 5 years old. My first film that I saw on there, I didn't know there was a host. I saw the film first, and before the commercials. I think it was Billy the Kid versus Dracula.
You're too late, Mr. Bunny. She's mine.
You killed her.
Bob Wilkins, to me, was the Johnny Carson or the Ed Sullivan of horror hosting. And I would watch it. I've seen the movies before, but he added to it, you know, his segments added to it. I learned a lot from his segments of the show, where he would tell you about what conventions were coming up next. And, you know, before the internet, you know, he was our information guy.
This is something brand new from the Federation Trading Post, a replica of the USS Enterprise. Little Nicholas, pretty neat. Can you see that? Good. Okay, some other Star Trek news. In Rodeo, California, tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, also at 6 and at 9, they're showing Star Trek episodes, plus some cartoons, plus some Flash Gordon serials on a big screen. That's a Rio Theater in Rodeo, California. Okay, that's in between Crockett and Pinole, somewhere around there. That's going on tomorrow. The Federation Trading Post will also be there tomorrow. And there are some tickets left for that Sacramento convention next Saturday, but all the noon show tickets are gone. So you people traveling from the Bay Area to Sacramento, the 6 o'clock show is the only thing left, and I can't guarantee that they'll be left when you get there, but that's the word from Sacramento tonight. Okay, let's get back to this film, and it does not get any better, okay? Warner Olin in tonight's movie, by the way, was Charlie Chan for many years. You remember him? And John Stanley with a Chronicle, and he's coming out with a horror film. He's come out with a blockbuster called World War III. Robert Bloch says, if you like Catch-22, you'll love this one. Fritz Leiber was very high on it, too. This will be at the bookstores next week. And another shot of that Venus flytrap. I have a story there for you because it just ate my cigar, believe it or not.
I watched Bob Wilkins' Creature Features on the premiere night in January of 1971 when I was 6 years old. And he told everyone not to watch the premiere of The Horror of Party Beach. But it was 9:30 at night when it started. I only saw the very beginning and I had to go to bed. And my uncle told me the next day he didn't miss much. Bob Wilkins said that the average show on television lasts 14 weeks, and he was hosting horror shows on 3 different channels for a total of 15 years.
You said you needed a world premiere, something that had never been seen anywhere in the world before.
That's right.
And I brought one with me, a first, and it's not The Horrors of the Black Museum, by the way.
No, that's our feature tonight. We'll be talking about your special in just a minute, but you know, a lot of our fans do not remember how you started here in Sacramento. And of course, our sign here will point out you were Bonanza Bill many years ago.
Bonanza Bill on Channel 40, a uranium prospector, showed cartoons.
And Channel 40, that's the old Channel 40.
That's the old Channel 40.
New Channel 40 will be coming on the air this month. We'll talk about that next week. And then you got your start here at 3 as Captain Sacto?
Captain Sacto. Big success. 7 years I was Captain Sacto.
7?
The old plane crashed. Bailed out over Red China.
Is it right?
Yes, got back here and gave it up.
Now, have you changed much since Captain Sacto?
Not a bit. I would say, let's see, what was that, about 12 years ago?
We try to tie in all the events going on. You know, Lincoln's birthday a couple days ago, Washington's birthday coming up, got the Chinese New Year celebration tonight, Valentine's Day, Leon Heskett's birthday, all those things. I tried to tie them together tonight, and I couldn't. So I'm not going to, okay? But the big news that everybody's been waiting for is Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon, Chapter 1 tonight, right after the first film. So I don't want to talk too long here, because the sooner I get through here, the sooner we'll see Flash tonight, and that's the important thing. Pacific Stereo will be bringing us 13 chapters sandwiched in between our movies every Saturday night. Okay, tonight, The Man with X-Ray Eyes. This is a story, a science fiction story, a good movie in color with Ray Milland. And he has the most powerful eyes in the world. He can look through people, including ladies, and walls and all sorts of things.
My initial reaction back then, I didn't really know much about horror hosting. I did grow up on Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. I totally fell in love with it. I
think I dozed off there for a minute, trying to read the newspaper here to keep awake. There's a interesting item from the Postal Department. If you haven't mailed your Christmas cards yet this year, you're already too late.
The effect that the show had for me at the time was discovering this whole world that is Creature Features. And it did help with me along the way as I decided to become a horror host. And that's the reason why I wear these glasses, actually. It's my little tribute to Bob Wilkins. He's definitely an inspiration for all horror hosts around.
Movies Target Earth and then The Werewolf of London will be along. But our special guest will be talking about Superman versus Spider-Man in just a minute. Then during the intermission, for you Star Trek fans, you'll meet Bruce Hyde, better known as Lieutenant Kevin Riley. He was in 2 episodes that very first season. We've dug this guy up, and he's going to tell us about what it was like to play in Star Trek, and you'll have a chance to meet him in person tomorrow, Sunday, at the Federation Trading Post. And then we'll have a special surprise for you. I'll talk more about that as this first movie gets on, Target Earth. Target Earth is a story about a robot, an army of robots from Venus. And, of course, Switzerland, known for their watches, and Venus has always been known for their robots. And so that's our first movie. It's sort of a low-budget science fiction film. At the top of the show, I want to talk about a magazine that rocked the comic book industry recently. There it is, Superman takes on Spider-Man. The big thing about this was, first time that 2 superheroes ever got together, but they're from different publishers, DC and Marvel Comics. Now that's like Macy's and Sears having a sale together. You know, it just couldn't happen. But it did happen, and the publisher of DC Comics was in town recently, Carmen Infantino, and I talked to him about Superman and Spider-Man. How did he get his start? Just real quickly.
These 2 young men, Siegel and Schuster, tried to sell it. They tried to sell it everywhere. Then they went to national periodicals, which was a company in those days that just took old newspaper strips, pasted them up into a comic book, and then put them out. Mm-hmm. They had a magazine called Detective Comics. That's where our DC comes from. They figured they were going to start another magazine because that was doing fairly well. And they had this comic strip laying on a shelf. They turned it down, too, by the way, this Superman thing. And somebody said, my God, we've got 8 pages open in this Action Comics. What about that thing, that super something?
Just
and they
hesitated. Huh?
Yeah, they just hesitated. Well, you know, it's a little wild. It's a little way out. Well, put it in. We got nothing else. What do we care? Well, they put it in, and the explosion began.
And he was on his way.
All the way from then on. It never let up.
One of my favorite clips is when he was showing Creature from the Black Lagoon one time, and he was talking about that he had bad potty training, and he did it in such a droll, monotone Bob Wilkins thing. I just thought that was so great. That was so Bob.
I was reading a very fine publication called the Monster Times, and they have a expose on the Creature from the Black Lagoon. Lagoon Creature Confesses. See it right there? And briefly, the story tells about how the creature had some poor toilet training when he was very young. And thus we understand how they arrived at the name of the movie, The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
A favorite clip of mine is when Bob Wilkins had Forrest J. Ackerman, the editor of Famous Monsters magazine, on the show. And they were both discussing who might be the next horror greats. You know, people who'll be remembered, the legends like Lon Chaney and Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. And what I think is funny about that is that the 2 of them, both of them, are like on the tippy top of many horror kids, monster kids list of like a horror greats, but not for acting or, you know, being in films, but for being a companion and kind of a connection to all these great films.
Do you think some of the stars coming up today of horror films will ever replace the greats?
Oh, that's
pretty hard to say.
Well,
at this time,
Christopher Lee, I'd say, is well on his way, and Peter Cushing. They have a firm hold on the hearts of their fans, and Vincent Price, definitely, too. He's made well, he's beyond his 100th
Right.
film now and going strong, a real tour de force in that recent Theater of Blood. I would sort of look to the pages of my own magazine and people who are growing up. Oddly enough, one of my readers cast me in a film lately called Schlock. It'll probably show up here someday. That's short for Schlockthropus, a kind of a missing link that gives everybody
You made Queen of Blood. You were in Queen of Blood.
I was in that I played Basil Rathbone's assistant, and I couldn't possibly wind up on the cutting room floor on that because I'm the climax. If you cut me out, the picture has no
And you were
ending.
in the Time Travelers?
Time Travelers.
They're running low on liners. You think you can catch up?
Don't worry. I'm keeping our spacemen happy, getting things squared away.
One of my favorite Bob Wilkins shows, when he showed an old interview that he did with Jack Benny, the comedian. And the reason being is because when I was a kid, on Lassie, we did a show with Jack Benny where he was trying to get me to join his fan club for 25 cents a year. And Lassie said, no, well, didn't say, but, saved me from giving Jack Benny a quarter. And when I saw that interview, it made me think of that, which I hadn't thought about in years.
One of the bright young stars that will be on NBC this fall is actually a seasoned veteran. He's 39, going on 39, and of course, he's Jack Benny. Mr. Benny, you've just finished a very successful run here at Lake Tahoe, and I understand it's about your favorite club to play.
It is. This is about the nicest. It actually isn't a club. It's a beautiful theater, and sometimes I do a gag about it. I look around the theater and I say, gee, this must have cost Bill Hara $15,000 or $20,000.
Well, you said in the show
He'll never get his money back on it.
You said in the show tonight that you've been all over the world, and yet Lake Tahoe still ranks very high for scenic beauty as far as
That's right. I think if you see a place like Lake Tahoe, if you see it in Switzerland, you see it in Europe, any place, you always. I mentioned if you're on the show tonight that the grass, is always greener in somebody else's yard, and they always think that we haven't got that kind of scenery. Well, we've got them all over, and this is a real beautiful spot and a wonderful place to work.
As the show progressed, Bob Wilkins got more into Star Trek, which I was a big fan of, and it became a source of where to find out things Star Trek-wise. I first heard about the Red Hour Festival there, then, of course, the Federation Trading Post, and later on ended up working at the Federation Trading Post.
Well, Sandy and I have been involved in Star Trek for a number of years, and we both organized the first annual Red Hour Festival that the Star Trek Archives put on here in the Bay Area. And the response from that sort of gave us an idea that there were a lot of people that would like to buy posters and pictures and things. So everybody wants to make their avocation their vocation. So we opened the store, and we're doing quite well.
One of the neat things about working at the Federation Trading Post was they had the very first Star Trek video game. Now, video games were just coming out at that point in time and were very popular.
I'm going to push the button here to start it, and all it takes is couple quarters, and explain what we have here now. Why don't you play it there, Stan and David?
I'm on the Klingon ship. Stan is on the Enterprise.
Okay.
And the joystick moves the ship around. We can rotate it in either direction by moving the stick. We can fire phasers as such. And I got them again. There are photon torpedoes we can fire. The ship we just saw up here in the middle of the screen is a Romulan vessel. He shows up every once in a while and shoots at somebody. He's just an annoyance factor to help the game move along.
The Star Trek Dream comes to mind immediately. That was a fantastic special. It was about Star Trek fandom at the time, and it was really from an insider's point of view. There were news stories and things like that about the conventions that were just starting to get going. They all had the tone of this wacky group of people really enjoyed this space show from the 60s, and they liked the ray guns and the guy with the pointed ears, so let's look at them for a while. It wasn't that. It was absolutely respectful of the show, of the fans, of the entire phenomenon.
You like this fame?
Well, it's very gratifying.
You like being shoved around at airports?
No, not particularly. No, I must say the fans that I've run into, places that I've gone to, have really been remarkably nice. They've been very interested but respectful, you know, and I appreciate that.
How's the album selling?
The album is doing very, very well. I suddenly find myself in the music business, you know, and they're wanting me to make more records. It becomes a question of what to do, what kind of material. I'm looking for material now, and I may possibly do some more.
Spock was not only making records, but writing and selling poetry, and even Captain Kirk had a hit album on his hands. Yes, the members of the Starship Enterprise were really riding high, but then came the disheartening news. Right in the middle of the second season, those audience surveys, they're called ratings, and they weren't sufficient enough to continue airing the program. There would be no third season. Now, what do you do when a network says that your favorite show is going off the air because not enough people watch it each week? Well, you raise your voice, you write letters, you organize. That's exactly what happened. A young science fiction fan from Oakland, California, by the name of B. Joe Trimble, changed the network's mind with legions of fans supporting her cause and her dream. NBC relented. There would be a third season. Did NBC ever contact you and say, hey, cut this out, or what was their reaction?
The reaction, oddly enough, was if we ignore them, maybe they'll go away.
Mm-hmm.
NBC never contacted me directly. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I think they still believe that I, in effect, had nothing to do with it, and that John and I are still only fans, merely fans. We've never been acknowledged by NBC as having any power or force whatsoever.
Bob had George Takei on as a guest shortly after it aired, and he lavished praise on the special, and rightfully so.
You know, to me, it's really amazing that a show like that can come off even at this point, 6 years after. Well, I guess it's because there is that kind of basis for putting a show like that on. I thought it was very well put together. The opening of that was, again, very stylishly put together. The kind of transitions that you made, the way that you eased the audience into the subject, and then the way you were able to, during the body of the show, to create that suspense, you know. Cancellation is coming. Can they avoid it? They did avoid that first obstacle, right. But now another bigger one, and the guillotine is up there quivering, you know. Is it going to fall? And then indeed it does fall. And what happens after that?
We even had more suspense because you didn't see the version with the commercials in it.
No, I didn't see that.
Okay.
Whenever Bob would show a Godzilla movie, that would be my favorite show, so I had a few of them.
King Kong versus Godzilla, heading for their colossal collision, shattering every obstacle that stands between them in the most fantastic rampage of annihilation ever recorded on film. See King Kong stamp Tokyo into the ground.
This is the head to my Godzilla costume. My inspiration from watching creature features. And I've worn it to many events in the San Francisco Bay Area.
All modern weapons failed. Is this the end of our civilization? Can the scientists of the world find a way to stop this creature? Or the answer, see Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Yes, Godzilla is a big part of our lifestyle today, with t-shirt iron-ons, squirt guns, you name it, Americans have bought it. Our movie is ready to unreel. Our cake is ready to be cut. Happy birthday, Godzilla. It all started 30 years ago when the world was a lot smaller, and so was Raymond Burr.
I used to love when Bob showed the Godzilla movies, and little did I know when I was watching Godzilla movies when I was 10 or 11 years old on Creature Features, I was preparing for my future, because now I work at Legendary and we make all the new Godzilla movies, and I'm head of Legendary Comics and do all the Godzilla graphic novels for our movies. We most recently did Godzilla vs. Kong, and I did the comics for those. So it's kind of amazing to think I was watching those movies 30 years ago or whatever it was, and It was preparing me for my future employment.
I always got a kick out of Bob when he would just throw out these kind of ridiculous statements that you had to think about. No, wait a minute. Is he for real, or is this just like totally off, out there? And most of the time I think it was out there, and he would just like pass out.
We'd hoped to have the Shell answer man with us this evening, but I understand he ran out of gas earlier this evening. Okay, that's it for this evening. I want to thank George Takei for coming by. If you missed him at the top of the show, why, too bad. Coming up now, The Creature Walks Among Us, and I want to dedicate it to all of the American Legion halls throughout Northern California. I think you're going to enjoy tonight's film. I'll see you throughout the movie.
I don't think most people understood that Bob was kidding half the time. I think half of his kidding went over the audience's heads.
Here's your moderator, Bob Wilkins.
Good evening. Every so often, as a public service, this show reaches out for someone who has given something worthwhile to his community. A pioneer, a man of vision, a leader, someone who we all look up to and respect. Unfortunately, such a man is not available this evening. Instead, we'll be speaking with Tom Horton, popular columnist for the Sacramento Union and author of the controversial book, Tom Horton on Paid Toilets and Other Pressures of Our Time. First, our distinguished panel. Harry Martin, Channel 3's showbiz editor. Mr. Martin is a World War II veteran and a recent loser in a Dagwood Bumstead look-alike contest. Next, Ron Lyons, popular KCRA radio DJ. Mr. Lyons has received much comment on his satirical episodes entitled Navajo Jim, which can be heard each morning, sandwiched in between some 42 hourly traffic reports.
The only time I saw Bob being serious is when he plugged the cinema shop or these other places that helped him out, or he was thanking people who helped him behind the scenes.
Next, Dan Ferris, owner of the popular cinema shop in San Francisco. Dan works with Monster Pictures every day. He's got all the answers. We hope we have the right questions for him. Bob Shaw, who is sort of a producer behind the scenes of the show for many, many years. And we don't show Bob too often, mainly because he doesn't want to be associated with the program. You can't blame the guy. He wants to get ahead, too.
There are a couple moments from those movies that I still think of now and again about how scared I was when I saw them. There was a movie called And Now the Screaming Starts. I always thought it was The Crawling Hand, but anyway, there was this disembodied hand with a stump on one side, and it was just crawling around by itself. And I couldn't understand how it was doing that. How is it crawling around by itself? Although I didn't know it was a rubber hand. I mean, I thought it was totally real. It gave me bedwetting nightmares for weeks, that hand. I remember, I'd never seen anything like it before. I mean, it was the most raw, crazy thing I'd ever seen. It was kind of like a lumpy-headed Frankenstein. It was Lady Frankenstein, but Frankenstein walks outside and he just grabs a live bird out of a tree and eats it. That was the most raw thing I'd ever seen. It was like that. I was done for the night. Like, nope, that's it. I'm tapping out. That is it. I'm done.
My favorite part of the show was the beginning intro with Bob, sitting there smoking that cigar. He just has this voice that you can just listen to forever, to a point where I didn't even want to watch the movies. I just wanted to watch him.
Forgot to thank Celebrity Cigar Night. This cigar is from Richard Bagtalia, the mayor of South San Francisco. By golly, it's a good one, too. Okay, now, just a quick sneak preview of what you're going to see after we get rid of this terrible movie we're watching. Isn't it a drag? That's it. Don't go away. Okay, the big night we've all waited for. Pacific Stereo is going to bring us Chapter 1 of Flash Gordon in just a minute. They got me an outfit for the occasion. I mean, when they buy a guy an outfit, they really go all out. Okay, Chapter 1 coming up in just a minute. We have to cut a spot for our sponsor tonight, Pacific Stereo. And the spot is so good that we're going to repeat it after Chapter 1. Then we'll be back over there with our Martian report. Okay, I'm ready if you are.
The Bob Wilkins Horror Show is one of my favorite things that Bob ever did. It was an examination of the entire horror genre, really, from its beginnings all the way to then current trailers and things.
But America didn't have a monopoly on horror films in the 20s. In Germany, the great screen actor Max Schreck played one of the most sinister villains ever seen on the screen. One of the first vampires, one of the ugliest too. The 1922 version of Nosferatu, based on Bram Stoker's Dracula. But this vampire wasn't too bright, or the sun was too bright, and it was soon all over.
My favorite part of it was the monster movie quiz.
Each question, there were 20 questions tonight, is worth 5 points. On occasion, we will go back to John Stanley with a bloody stumper. That's bonus points worth 10 to 20 points. Now, if it's the right answer, I'll let you know out there. If it's a wrong answer, John Stanley will let us know by... That's the wrong answer. Okay, is our panel ready now for the first monster movie quiz question ever asked on television? Here it is. Here's a scene from Monster on Campus. It's a creature feature classic. You're about to see, there he is, Arthur France, portrayed as a hairy monster. Can you name the girl that is in his arms? Is it Terry Moore, Patricia Neal, Joanna Moore, or Tricia Nixon? Dan Ferris.
Joanna Moore.
Joanna Moore is right. Give yourself 5 points. Don't go away, because at the end of the show, I'm going to have some rare black and white slides of a vacation I took in 1954. They've never been shown on television before, and I think you're going to like them.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for this special presentation of the documentary Up Late with Bob Wilkins. We hope you're enjoying the show. Of course. Thank you. Tangella has admonished me to mention that this documentary is currently nominated for a world-famous Rondo Award. This is something like the Academy Awards for horror stuff, and this documentary is up against a few others. So please, if you like this film, give it a vote. You can see the nominee list and how to vote by visiting rondoaward.com. So let's get back to Up Late with Bob Wilkins, and we'll see you towards the end of the film.
I was always amazed, and this was unheard of on other shows of this type. But the line of guests that Bob had on his shows, from the cast to Star Trek to Star Wars and beyond, I mean literally hundreds of famous movie and fandom personalities.
How many times would you have to take it off and put it on during a shooting day?
Well, the first day I wore it all day, so it meant that I can't actually touch my face. So I was eating lunch like this, and it was like a real Tantalus situation. I couldn't actually touch my mouth. I was nearly in tears the first day because it hurt so much.
I think adult animation is here. That's my whole approach. You know, Disney does a wonderful job of what he does, but it's Disney. You know, I'd like to bring all the underground comics to to animation. I think that would be sensational.
You know what we started to play the other night, Jim, and a lot of people haven't seen them. That's the old animated series. I call it old. It's not that old, but how many voices did you do in that?
Well, I did 3 voices on every one of them, and some of them I did 4 voices on, and I think there's one that I did 5 on.
George is like the boy genius from the 5th grade that suddenly finds himself in college with all the grown-ups. Part of him still plays with liquid helium guns, and part of him has the kind of brain that it takes to make American Greedy THX.
And that's why we had the great success that Star Wars is enjoying.
Yeah, he oversaw all those effects. He has gray in his beard now.
Oh my goodness.
He hasn't had time to play with his liquid helium gun.
Wow. How did you bump into George Lucas? How did he pick you for this particular?
Well, I'd worked with Lucas before in American Graffiti.
That's right.
And
he remembered you.
And he remembered me.
But
he remembered a lot of other people, too.
Yeah.
I tested for the part.
Do you always do interviews in roller coaster cars?
Always. As a matter of fact.
It's comfortable, yes. When I think of George Segal, I always think of comedy, you know, and yet I saw King Rat, Virginia Woolf, and a lot of things. I just wanted to tell you that a lot of Creature Feature fans, that's a show that I host, just fell in love with the character you played in Young Frankenstein. It's just outstanding.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
The only people I care about really are people who like monsters, really.
Yeah. What was it like when you got that phone call from Katzman, I believe it was? Kirk, we want you to be Superman. Do you remember that call?
Oh, sure, yes. See, because one of my hobbies is building furniture, and there I was out in the backyard in my little shop working on the furniture. The phone rang.
You know, Cecil is the only character that can look sad, look glad, and he loves to say goodbye with a slurp kiss. Is that right? Yes.
You've taken on the chores of writing, producing, and of course you're one of the stars in the film. You've come a long way since Willy Wonka.
Yes, I have.
How do you direct yourself out there? That must be difficult to do.
It would have been impossible, I think, if I hadn't had the help of a machine. It's called a video playback machine.
Yeah. Well, Duncan, I know that there was a big turnout here at the Cisco Kid Festival, and even the mayor of San Francisco hasn't forgotten Cisco Kid.
No.
The key to the city?
Mayor Moscone gave me this morning this nice key to the Mission Dolores.
About half about Star Trek. Tried to tell some stories that haven't been in the books about it. Take the audience inside what it is to make a show, some of the ridiculous and funny and other things that happen.
It parallels almost what Karloff did with the Frankenstein monster.
Yes, he played it 3 times.
Yes, and he said...
As you know, never again.
Right.
And he, don't forget, when he made those films, was fortunate enough insofar as they were major studio productions. I saw The Son of Frankenstein the other day in England on television. It's a brilliant picture.
I'm concerned for 2 reasons. One is I'm one of the actors involved that could be gainfully employed, at least in the movie. And also, I'm a fan of Star Trek. I really like to watch it. My mind is a sieve, really. I learn lines rather quickly, and I forget them just as quickly. So I can watch many segments of Star Trek that I haven't seen in some time and not know how it's going to come out. I forgot. It's all new. I look at it and wondering what's going to happen.
But how did you feel? How did you feel?
Hey, listen, you're sitting in the back of the theater and kids are jumping out of their seats and booing Darth Vader. I nearly burst into tears. I was so thrilled.
Yeah. Great. You did a great job.
Bob, thank you very
We look
much.
forward to seeing you in Star Wars #2 or whatever they call it.
Beneath the planet of Star Wars.
Yeah.
One of the things I most enjoyed about Creature Features was watching Bob's celebrity interviews. For example, I remember one he had with Buster Crabbe, who played Flash Gordon, who at that time was quite elderly, but he reminisced about working on the serials in the 1930s. And things like that were really interesting to those of us who watch Creature Features because it was, again, a gateway into the background of the making of the films and the different personalities that were involved. And I went so far as, I'm dating myself a lot here, but this was in the old days before even VHS. I would audio record with a cassette recorder some of the interviews that I saw that were coming up that were really interesting to me, and I would listen to them again on audio cassette. I had quite a stack. Hard to imagine that nowadays because everything is so readily available on YouTube and different places, but back then there was really no way to watch something again.
I'm Frederick Lauren, and I've rented the house on Haunted Hill tonight so that my wife can give a party. A haunted house party. She's so amusing. There'll be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders.
Creature Features had a really great effect on me. It not only planned my weekends around it as a little kid, it's what we looked forward to on the weekends. It also created my love of horror and science fiction movies.
civilization. We're trapped!
Jason and the Argonauts, the classic story of an epic voyage that has been told and retold since the birth of Western civilization, now presented on the screen for the first time.
Didn't seem that windy when I pulled up in the parking lot. My gosh, it comes up fast. We've got the Amazing Transparent Man for you tonight. A science fiction film of the 50s variety, even though this was one of the first of the 60s, made in 1960. And it's sort of those, the mad scientist type variety. He makes an invisible man. First thing they do, well, I guess it's the first thing we'd all do. The Invisible Man starts to rob banks all over, supermarkets. The only good thing about this movie is that there are a couple laughs, and it's very short. It's very short. I think the movie runs about 60 minutes. And with a Channel 2 load of commercials, that would be 60 and 45. It's a very short movie. In fact, so short that tonight, a bonus, Hollywood and the Stars, Monsters We Have Known and Loved. That'll be on right after the film, so stick around because that's better than the movie, okay?
If it wasn't for Creature Features, we wouldn't have the Bay Area horror and sci-fi community that we do. Myself, I wouldn't be doing Lord Blood-Raw's Nerve-Wracking Theater if it wasn't for watching Creature Features and falling in love with those films through that show. I think that's true of anybody today in the Bay Area who is producing shows, doing podcasts, producing live shows, anything in the horror and science fiction community that is being produced today. Trace them back, and they were kids sitting in front of that TV watching Creature Features.
Coming up now, the Martian Report. This is a news report like you've never seen before, and we're just going to play about 4 minutes of it. It's a half-hour show that plays here in the Bay Area. Here we go with the Martian Report.
Attention, Earthlings, do not panic. The Martian Bureau of Investigation is preempting normal Earthling programming for the next 30 minutes.
Bob is one of those horror hosts that all horror hosts coming up can go back and watch archived footage of him and really learn who he was, a part of a show called Creature Features. He worked hard on that show. I learned a lot from just watching him.
In the early 30s, Frederick March made Jekyll and Hyde and won an Academy Award. And I could stand corrected on this. I think it's the only time a horror movie has ever won an Academy Award. There have been a couple of nominations here and there. Frederick March won it that year. And they've never made that movie. That was the tops. They've tried a couple times to make something similar. In fact, today on Channel 36, the afternoon movie had I, Monster, where Christopher Lee played Jekyll. And that was disappointing. And tonight it's a little disappointing, although it gets off to a pretty good start. Christopher Lee does not play Jekyll tonight. And Oliver Reed, you Oliver Reed fans, this was one of his first movies. In fact, he's not even in the credits. He plays a bully. He tries to punch somebody. Is it in a bar? You know, one of those big guys in the bar trying to punch people. So you might look for that, you Oliver Reed fans.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity and honor to meet Bob several times. Of course, the store, he was there all the time when stars from the show came. And I also met him at the Oakland Convention, the big Oakland Convention, BaseCon. And it was funny, he's just like he is on the TV. It's like he's a real person. And there he was right in front of me.
Good morning, everybody. Good to be here in Oakland, California.
is going to do called Police Story.
I managed to talk my family into driving from the Central Valley to Oakland to attend the convention. I was lucky that my parents were film buffs and my dad was a science fiction buff, so they were intrigued. You know, this was in the early days of Star Trek conventions, and so they wanted to see what it was all about. And we went. The guest was William Shatner, and Bob was the MC. And I have to say honestly, meeting Bob was almost as exciting, if not as exciting, as meeting William Shatner. Bob and his family and Bob Shaw were sitting at tables in the dealer's room, and Bob was giving away or selling pictures and giving away decoder cards from Captain Cosmic, his other show. And I can still remember how warm he was with his young fans. I was probably 10 years old at the time.
Keep your seats because there's going to be a doctor speak to us in a minute.
So it was very down home. There weren't any companies there, and a lot of the merchandise was homemade. So yeah, it was a unique time before it all became big business the way it is now.
One more question now. At the end of the movie, they didn't quite catch you there, but you didn't catch them either. Are we going to hear from you again?
I will be back.
He says he's going to come back. Darth, I want to give you a cigar here. So there you go.
I don't smoke nicotine.
The first time I met Bob Wilkins was in 1978 at the Galactic Starport in Union City. And I go there and he's signing autographs. I'm going, it's really him. So I was thrilled.
This is the first time you probably seeing this. This is a cover of a new book that Leonard Nimoy is putting out. They've blown it up into a very attractive poster. His new book is called I Am Not Spock. They're put out by Celestial Arts in Millbrae, and David Hine was kind enough to send me over the galley proof of this book, and it's a fascinating book, I Am Not Spock. And he will, Leonard Nimoy will be at a number of places in Northern California in October. I'll have those addresses for you on the next break. In the meantime, a little bonus for you fans of the Cinema Shop in San Francisco. They're giving away this poster free to the first 100 people that come in the store. Of course, this is the fine science fiction movie that has just been released, A Boy and His Dog. Those posters are free. Just go in and tell them you're a Creature Feature fan. The Cinema Shop, 526 O'Farrell. Coming up the next break, where you can see Leonard Nimoy live.
Some of my favorite moments were some of his really unique and dry bits. He did this thing that there was a coupon for something, for a free piece of merchandise or a free live show or something like that. And he showed it on the screen and said, okay, here's your coupon. I'll give you a couple of minutes to cut it out.
Here's a special offer, first time ever on television. A 10-cent off coupon just for trying Creature Features. Now you watch both movies this Saturday night starting at 9:30, and we'll give you 10 cents off the regular price. I'll just wait a second while you cut out the coupon. Okay, by the way, our second feature next week will be Equinox. That's with The Walking Dead. You know, tonight's movie is good, but a couple of sponsors dropped out of it. Maureen, they make the stuff for the eyes, iGene, boric acid. All those people didn't want tonight's film, but we picked up the extra revenue from Foster Grants and Polaroid, the people that make sunglasses. They're heavy tonight throughout this first movie.
It's like a splitting of the world. More light than I've ever seen. Filled with light.
X, the man with the X-ray eyes, tries to help the most desperate in our society and enjoys all the delights of secretly studying sexology.
Headache?
No, it's just my eyes.
I met Bob Wilkins on a movie
a free movie giveaway from Creature Features. It was on Kingdom of the Spiders premiere, and I met him at the Ceremony 6, and he just kind of talked about the movie before they played it, and I went up and introduced myself to him and just said, you know, you're like one of my heroes. I watch your show every single week forever. As far as I think I was 13 at the time, but I was starstruck basically by Bob Wilkins.
Yeah, I can remember seeing him at a shop in San Jose called Collector's Corner. It was the first time I ever saw him in person, and there was a line like down the block, and you would come by, and he was giving out these bumper signs, these humorous bumper signs that he would use to go in and out of commercial with. And I think the one I got had Joe Namath in it. I mean, it was a cutout. It was literally a handcrafted thing, a cutout picture of whatever they were doing with a cutout word balloon with words written in it. I mean, that's what it was. And I had it signed by Bob, and I cherished it until that thing just kind of fell apart. I could not tell you where the scraps of that thing are today.
Okay, a couple of things I want to talk about tonight. We'll be talking with a gentleman in just a minute about a big science fiction convention coming to Santa Rosa in October, so you might have a pencil and paper ready for an address. One of the shows that everyone is talking about, not everyone, but I bumped into a guy the other day that watches it. It's a Captain Cosmic show. Every weekday, Monday through Friday at 5. Yeah, we're high over Livermore, California today. How are you? He's excited because it's a brand new series today, Space Giants, brand new episode. And you've got the highlights for me? Okay. He gets to preview them. Oh my gosh, all this is going to happen today. We'll have to hurry. Most action ever. Today's episode, according to 2T2, we're going to see a Japanese Santa Claus, believe it or not. Rodak's Christmas present to Earth, Rodak's the bad guy, is a new monster called Vacuuma. He's like a vacuum cleaner. He sucks up all of his enemies. And what else we're going to have later in the week? Another monster about Wednesday, Gore. He'll join the battle. And then thousands of little dwarf robots are going to be in this week's episode, and they crawl up the pants legs of people and tickle them to death. Okay, we're going to give away some T-shirts and a lot of stuff, but we've got to hurry today because we've got so much action. A couple of commercials, and then right into Space Giants.
I saw Bob Wilkins' show at the Varsity Theater in Palo Alto in 1979, and he came as himself, Bob Wilkins, not Captain Cosmic, and they showed Logan's Run, Hardware Wars, and The Spy Who Loved Me, where the average age of the kids in the audience were 11 years old. And Bob came out on stage and said, "I'm sorry Captain Cosmic couldn't be here. He was giving 2T2 an oil change." And the entire audience went, we all know you're Captain Cosmic.
Okay, there's our scene. We're going to go all the way to London, England now. See if we can bring him in. By golly, here's a big guy. You must be...
Hi, Captain.
How are you? Dave Prowse?
Dave, yep.
Would you say hello to him? And he...
Hi.
See, he's not such a bad guy.
Hi, 2D2.
You know, 2T2
He sounded dead scared, Mike. Huh? You know? He sounded dead scared earlier on.
Well, you know, a lot of people and robots believe that the role that you play in the movies is the real person. Now, of course, you're quite a gentleman, they tell me.
Well, I'm a married man, actually. I'm married and I got 3 children of my own, and I don't frighten them to death.
No, you're very kind to them. You know, you have thrilled so many millions of people in the role of Darth Vader. We just saw a scene on our future screen about the light stick there, the saber.
The lightsabers.
How did they do that in the movie?
Well, we had if you can imagine, a double-handed torch. Mm-hmm. And if you take off this is a flashlight, what you would call a flashlight.
Yes.
If you take out the reflector and the bulb, and you insert a very, very fast revolving motor into the top. So now you've got virtually a double-handed flashlight, but with a revolving motor.
Yes.
And into the motor they put a piece of dowel, you know, a thin piece of wood, about 4 foot long, and then they coated the dowel with this very, very highly reflective tape. And then, so as soon as you switched on, the dowel revolved very, very fast, and then when you shone the lights at the sword, the whole thing reflected.
Gave
that
a
was really how it was
fantastic
done.
effect.
The only problem was is that they used to break every time you used to touch, every time you used to slash at each
I
other.
see. Oh, they don't make
and the
sabers
swords
like they
touch.
used to.
Oh, they don't. No.
Well, this is it. This is the final Creature Features with yours truly. And I guess we've been doing this for about 9 years now. And during the first break tonight, we'll introduce you to the man who will carry on the tradition here. They're getting hot coffee into him right now, and he'll be on with us during the first break. Tonight we'll close off with Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, a Hammer film, first time on this program.
Dr. Jekyll, Sister Hyde, man or woman, or both. In this film, you will actually see the sinister Dr. Jekyll change in mind and body into the totally evil Sister Hyde.
What about Creature Features now? What do you intend to do with it?
Well, basically, it's got to stay the same kind of show, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to change the format all that much. We still want to entertain with
Not
the
even the
interviews.
movies?
And we're going to try to keep the fans informed about the
Good.
Star Trek conventions and all of the fantasy film showings and everything like that.
John Stanley, our new host, and you fans stick with him because he's going to need help. I just saw the list of the March movies, and I got out just in time.
When John Stanley took over Creature Features, I watched it out of curiosity to see how his approach would be. I missed Bob Wilkins so much, but I gave John a chance. And right off the bat, I go, I like him. You know, it's a different way of approaching with the mini-movies and a lot of information about the movies that he shows. And he became my new favorite.
I'm John Stanley, your Trinetic Creature Features host. When you see my show Saturday nights here on Channel 2, you know that the input into my superior brain is going to result in an output of superior entertainment. There's nothing mechanical about Creature Features. It always computes. So I'll be here to meet robots, mad scientists, and other beings of the bizarre on Creature Features Saturday at 11:30 p.m. on Channel 2. That's only a sampling of what you're really going to see tonight. So popular was the teaming of the Wolfman and the Frankenstein monster that Universal decided to let nature take its course. And now the monster film became something different. It became a menagerie featuring every character imaginable. It wasn't a horror film anymore, it was a circus. It was a parade of the grotesque.
Without a doubt, my favorite mini-movie that John did was The Phantasm.
Hey, what's the idea of bringing me out here to Morningside Mortuary like this?
I wanted to entertain you in a setting in which I feel most at home. I promise you every comfort.
Well, you certainly believe in atmosphere and realistic settings. This graveyard is just like a scene out of Phantasm.
It was a good idea not to let your little brother come to the funeral. Yeah, I don't like this place.
Something weird is going on up there.
The funeral is about to begin, sir.
When Bob left the show in '79, we were like, well, who's going to take over this? How could you fill that spot? And then John Stanley came along, and he did really a great job, and continued to watch him.
Tarantula, Monster from the Ocean Floor, The Deadly Mantis, all these films dealt with the atomic monster, the mutant spawned by the nuclear madness of mankind. One of the finest films of this genre of the 1950s was a 1954 Warner Brothers film. I think you remember this one. Remember the one about the giant ants?
There is no word to describe them.
We may be witnesses to a biblical prophecy come true. And there shall be destruction and darkness come up in creation, and the beast shall reign over the earth.
After Bob left Creature Features, he had his own advertising agency, and he had a lot of famous high-end clients. And one of his first clients was Chuck E. Cheese.
This message is for kids who love pizza and love to have fun. You just can't beat the delicious pizza at Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater. And there's no way you can beat the fun at Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater. Pizza and fun, they go together best at Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater.
Bob had all these great self-produced specials that he made. And then, somewhat out of his realm, he had a career as a late-night weatherman.
You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
I'm your host, Bob Wilkins. Twilight Zone began on the CBS television network on October 2nd, 1959. In the premiere episode, Where Is Everybody?, a young, then unknown Earl Holliman starred as a man searching a small town filled with the signs of life, but where he could find no life at all. We hope you're all set. You have your 3D glasses ready. This is really going to be a big night for movie fans and television fans. The first time in Northern California that a feature-length film has been shown in 3D and you can watch it right in your living room, okay? So get the old glasses on. I know it's a big night for me. I bought a new necktie today, haircut, 35-cent cigar. We'll be right back to tell you some of the best ways to watch 3D and some other tips for you. Don't go away.
Beware, there's someone hidden in the fog.
Anybody here?
A man so sinister, so secretive,
I want to see who it is.
that no one has seen him
Who's there?
since Creature Features.
Oh, there's something different about this fog.
Bob Wilkins
Who is that?
returns to host The Fog, coming Thursday, April 30th.
The swan song.
That's right.
There it is, last night, after 2 years.
2 years, going to hang up the barometer, but don't get emotional on the air, George. Okay, the final forecast here. Lots of rain down south today, moved up into New England in the Ohio Valley area. This was rain not connected with Hurricane Carmen. Let me just take a little time here to tell you where I've been since I left the show in '79. And as I said at the beginning of the show, people like to know personal lives of people in television and movies and stuff like that, and I have nothing to hide, so I'll tell you where I've been. I've always been gainfully employed, even though you can occasionally see me at the Berkeley Pier fishing and things like that. I never would have left to unless I had a job. My first job in 1979 was I worked for my uncle's laundromat in San Leandro, and that worked out real well. He started me off on the dryers, and I didn't like cleaning the lints out at first, but then, you know, you get a hang to anything, and it just goes along real smoothly. I fell down on making change, quarters, you know. For some reason, quarters were difficult for me to count out. And then the washers, repairing washers. I hate my hands, you know, the grease and the dirt. And after about 2.5 years, I shook his hand and got rid of that job. And it's the job I have now is where I work most of the time, and that's my brother-in-law's worm farm in Modesto. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've heard a lot about worm farms. But I'll tell you, after being in television all those years and the hectic pace and everything, a worm farm is just perfect. I'm a night watchman there, and there's over 1 million worms in this big box. And those little buggers are so quiet, you can't believe it, really. And, you know, every once in a while, somebody, a crazed fisherman will break in and steal a couple of night crawlers, but we haven't had a lot of problems down there, and I hope to continue on in that capacity. And this television thing is just a one-time shot tonight, but it's nice to let you know out there what I've been doing, and maybe you could write me a letter and tell me what you've been doing since 1979.
I worked for a magazine called Planet X, and they had done an interview with Bob in the magazine. And to launch the magazine, we did a creature features style revival show. And we showed It Came from Outer Space and Hardware Wars. And we actually had Bob come out, and he actually offered to host the show. We did the first show with Bob Wilkins at Harlow's in Sacramento, and then we did a second show with Bob and John Stanley at Harlow's.
It was basically a live creature feature show. We had 16 millimeter film. I actually had somebody come and direct the show. I mean, we really wanted to make this like a live creature feature show. And Bob had guests. So when we'd have somebody from Lost in Space, Bettina Marcus was one of our guests. We'd show some Lost in Space on 16 millimeter film. We had Ernie Faselius at one of the shows, and he directed and wrote Hardware Wars. So Bob would interview him like he was doing it on his TV show, and after that we would show Hardware Wars on 16 millimeter film. So it really was a live creature feature show.
And then at the same time, in the Bay Area, Will the Thrill was doing some comeback shows at the Parkway Theater in Oakland, and I had attended some of those shows as well.
It was interesting how Captain Cosmic came about, if you want to hear. Tom Breen was a program director at Channel 2. He called me in one day, and Star Wars had been out for a couple of weeks, and everybody, was lined up to see that movie over and over again. He said, I want to put on something like Star Wars with, action and so forth.
But without the budget.
And he said, we have a number of Japanese products, and we want to play it when the kids, the younger kids get home from school. Okay? So he said, come up with some ideas. Okay, here's a program director with no ideas, but coming to me. Yeah.
And very soon, once Will and Scott Moon and Tom Wyrsch and we all started talking, we started doing these shows together. There were these big horror host paloozas where we had Bob and John and sometimes myself and other hosts all together in a united front, like team creature features. And we did so many conventions, Comic-Cons, WonderCons, etc.
I always like to give the fans the latest news on Godzilla because he was one of the favorites that we played on the old Late Show. This was just in the paper the other day that the 21st Godzilla film will be released very soon. Godzilla vs. Destroyer. 21 Godzilla films have been made, and according to the producer, he said, this will be the last one. He says there are no more fresh ideas, and we wanted to finish with Godzilla while he was still a star. I think we have a clip of my all-time favorite Godzilla film.
Hello, it's us again. We hope you're enjoying this special presentation of the documentary Up Late with Bob Wilkins. Just a reminder to please vote for this film at rondoaward.com. We think our director, Tom Wyrsch, deserves some recognition for the work he put into this. We hope you think so as well and will vote. Also, please don't forget to join Tangella and I every Saturday night for the latest incarnation of Creature Features. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you will. So before we get back to the end of the documentary, Tangella and I would like to wish you a wonderful night, and we hope to see you soon. Good night.
Akiko!
look out!
Attack of the Mushroom People, in fact, was our first movie way back there in the 60s. Channel 3 used to pick them up at garage sales and things of that nature. It was a low budget program.
So in the early 2000s, the internet happened, and I met Tom Wyrsch, who at that time, and still is, was sort of the archivist and custodian of the legacy of Creature Features. And we started corresponding and became friends over email, as people did in those early days. And one of the things that we talked about at one point was a documentary. And Tom was really keen on doing a documentary about Bob and John and Creature Features. And one day he emailed me and said, hey, we're going to do the documentary for real. I've started interviewing people. I sort of came on board as a consultant and, helped him, shape the piece. And it was a lot of fun. We had a previously recorded interview with Bob that was really key, where he had gone into his memories of doing the show. And we did a new interview with John and Bob Shaw, which was really crucial. I'm really glad we did it when we did it, and we could kind of honor their legacy and have something nostalgic for fans who remembered the show.
I think it's amazing that after all these years, we had the Bob Wilkins era, and of course we had the John Stanley era, and now we have a new era of Creature Features that is actually a first-class production. So, I think Bob would be happy to see how his project keeps going and finding new fans.
The new Creature Features, well, what I really like about it is that it's not just the one person. It's not just the host. You have Livingston and Tangella, but it's fun, and especially, I really like Tangella.
I want you to join me next week with Vincent, Livingston, and of course, Tangella for another episode of Creature Features. No, I don't want to see your guillotine.
The craziness of her, it's a lot of fun. So I like that about the new show. And then, of course, Vincent, well, Vincent is Vincent.
I love what they're doing. It's so much fun. I've actually been a guest a few times on the show. I've been up to the Poulter Mansion, and I love Vincent Tangella and Livingston. They're doing Bob justice. I'm even part of the show a little bit because I recorded the new theme song from the old show basically back in the day. I changed a couple of words to match the new cast, but I feel very honored. I was honored to be asked to do it, honestly.
Can you picture that awful creature? Can you picture that ugly creature? Creature Features and Feature Features about creatures and Creature Features with Livingston and Tangella too, and our host Vincent Van Dahl, and he brings it to ya!
Greetings, this is Mr. Lobo. In a few weeks, I'll be a guest here on Creature Features. I hope you join us, and Livingston hopes you'll tune in as well.
Personally, I plan to be in the Bahamas.
Just in time for hurricane season. Nice. See you then.
This is Milton Berle. If you can watch Bob Wilkins' very funny show, and if you can take that, you can sure take me at the Sahara Tahoe. It's the worst show I've ever seen. It's the worst show.
This is your offstage announcer reminding you to be sure and watch Bob Wilkins' wonderful horror film tonight. Certainly one of our favorites, The Creature from the Blue Latrine.
I never miss the Bob Wilkins show. Why should I? It's free.
Do you like real scary movies and stuff like that?
I do too. I can hardly wait for Saturday night in 7 March Theater with Bob Wilkins. It's the weirdest. It just scares me to death. Shazam!
Mr. Karloff, I just was wondering, and of course many of my fans out there, why we don't have more of your films on the Bob Wilkins Show.
On what show?
The Bob Wilkins Show.
I've never heard of the Bob Wilkins Show. But if he shows my films, God bless him and long life to him.
Thank you very much.
Not at all.
Hello, I'm Roy Thinnis of the Invaders. I have learned recently that there is to be some caution used in dealing with a man named Bob Wilkins in the Sacramento area. All those who come in contact with Mr. Wilkins, please notice his hands, the small finger. Check him out.
I just wanted you to know how much I enjoy watching creature features over the years, and you were a big part of the experience. Congratulations, George Lucas from old San Rafael over there, Lucasfilms. Whatever happened to George?
I have no idea.
Oh, this is really nice.
I probably would not be the person that I am and have the interests or likes or went into the things that I went into if it wasn't for Bob Wilkins and Creature Features. I knew that the kids, I mean, anybody I talk about now, if I wear this shirt or they look on my motorcycle because I have on my back fender, which is a silhouette of Bob Wilkins. If you look on my set here from my show, it's all creeped out and creatures. That's my house is decorated the same way. It has impacted my life tenfold, and I'm very fortunate to be a part of it.
You know, the thing I really enjoy about this type of show, horror shows, is, and especially the host, because you get to experience these movies that you've seen years and years ago in a whole nother light. And that's what the host brings out, I think. It just makes it enjoyable, and especially when some of the movies are so bad, yet they make them enjoyable. I think maybe just for that reason, it's because they are so horrible, and we kind of force ourselves to watch them and get some pleasure out of that. So who knows, but it's a great way to spend a Saturday evening.
Creature Features was the gateway to the Universal films, the 50s sci-fi films, Hammer films, Godzilla films, all of that stuff. You were fed that diet of those genre films through Creature Features, and a certain number of us fell in love with them and just couldn't let those old films go away.
Bob Wilkins is an icon in the San Francisco Bay Area. I mean, no matter where I go, I might mention his name right off the bat. They know who it is.
Can I describe Bob Wilkins in a couple of words? Funny. Kind.
Smart, nerdy.
Stoic, iconic.
Geek, cool.
Inspirational and encouraging.
And we needed all the help we could get with tonight's movie, right?
Can you feature that awful creature? Can you feature that ugly creature? Creature features and feature features about creatures. Creature features. But the weirdest thing about this show is its host, Bob Wilkins, and he brings it to you. Creature features, and more creatures, and more features. And the creature's gonna get you tonight. You better not turn out your bedroom lights. He'll grab your head and give it such a bite. You may even die from just a fright. Ain't nothing gonna be, baby, I say be alright. Cause the creature gonna get you, baby. He gonna get you tonight.